Hey everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter, your Sports Illustrated beat writer, covering the Las Vegas Raiders and host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. With what every week we like to say this segment sponsored by Greg Martin. Greg is my good buddy Matt, who always says to me, my favorite segment is Matt Halatic. Now I think it's because you both have the same hairdo.
Probably.
But that being said, let's get right into it. Man, by the way, Matt is the editor and publisher of the spun.com. And you need to put this in your favorites because I'm going to tell you, and this is no exaggeration. One of the first websites I look at every day, first thing I do is obviously I look at all my websites, make sure everything's going good. And then I go to his thespun.com. And there are times when I literally will just laugh out loud. The other day I get on there and there's Heidi Klum, and I'm thinking the only way Heidi Klum makes it on a sports site is at thespun.com. And it was hilarious. Matt, you guys do such a terrific job. Everybody should have it in their favorites. And welcome to the program. It's good to have you.
It's always a pleasure, and I'm glad to be back on this week and not looking all swollen and after last week being on medication and stuff.
Hey, I don't know if you looked at the comments. I do not read the comments. And I just don't do it. Zeke finally talked me out of it. 99% of the people are wonderful. Even if they disagree with you, they're wonderful. It's just that 1% of vitriol.
Mhm.
And when I had a guy attack my son and my son's ethnicity, I just decided it was probably in my best interest to stay away and not say what I think. So I have people that police it and all that kind of stuff, and but whatever. But my staff brought me multiple comments, and then the emails. Matt looks sick. Is Matt okay? One person, Hondo, I'm a doctor. Matt needs to get to the hospital. He does not look good. I mean, it was so funny, the response. I don't even know if you've publicly said what happened, but are you feeling okay?
Oh yeah. I had a allergic reaction and like a skin infection, double whammy. So I'm doing
Well,
great.
I know you
Yeah.
told me. I didn't know if you had made it public, so I wasn't going to
No,
say anything.
yeah, I'm fine, and I've worked through it and everything, and I was looking like I went a couple of rounds with the Bayonne bleeder, Chuck Wepner, so I'm doing much better now.
To tell you, you're going to think I'm the worst friend in the world, but every email, I literally cracked up laughing. It was so fun.
No,
I
it
wasn't going to
was.
betray you, huh?
It was. No, it was funny. It was definitely a shock to the system last week if you're used to watching me on the segments.
Well, you're back to your usual bringing sexy back, okay? Got a lot I want to talk about. I want to start with Davante. So last week at mini camp, um, we were talking to him, and he talked about potential ends when you're 10, and it's just about winning. I love his approach. I think I love it. And for a young team that's building, for him to keep hammering, it's not about potential. I'm sorry. I respect it. I think that leadership is so vitally needed. He's been there. He's done it. He's got the victories. He's got the great plays. He's got the resume. I'm sorry. I love it. I think it's great. What are your thoughts on Davante's comment to those of us beat writers?
I think it's definitely a good sign. You know, that you get that veteran leadership, a guy that's been there before. His resume speaks for itself. He's a guy who's been close to playing in the Super Bowl multiple times, so he knows what it takes to get to the cusp of being there. He's, deep into his career, so he knows that he wants to win and get another shot at a title before he retires. So I think that motivation is there, and I think he knows. The Raiders are still building; they're not at that level yet. But the fact that he's embraced that role of being a leader and trying to get them to that level, and get the guys around him to step up their games and realize what it takes is a good sign because you could go the opposite route and be disenchanted with the team and disenchanted with your situation and want to get out and go to a different place to play. And it doesn't seem like that's what he's looking to do. So I think that's a great sign for the Raiders as they try to build with Antonio Pierce.
All right. I want to now move to Zamir White because I got a lot of thoughts on him. And as you know, you and I have been doing this now together over almost a decade and a half. And I cover the Raiders every day from a very close micro position. You cover the NFL from a macro position. And so maybe I'm too close to the forest to see the trees. So I'm going to put out an opinion here, and I love you to either refute it or agree with it. Anybody that wants to make Zamir White the next Walter Payton is a fool. We don't know, but we saw what he did at Georgia, which doesn't matter, although it's an indicator. It's not the final address. But you saw last year when they gave him the rock, when they said, okay, this is your team going down the stretch. You saw him against a very good Kansas City defense on Christmas Day. Everybody knew he was running, and they couldn't stop him. When I look at stupidity like Raiders have worst running back room in the NFL, when then you go add Alexander Madison, you've got Amir Abdullah. I think the disrespect for him is over the top. I think everyone should say we clearly are not ready to call him the best running back in the league or even in the top five. But with what he's done in limited opportunities, the Raider Nation should be extremely optimistic. Again, I'm not trying to paint him what he isn't, but a lot of people are painting him what he's not. And to me, that's just disrespect. Would love your thoughts on Zamir.
I think there's always an element of a guy who's taken over as the lead at a position, whether
I'm sorry, you sound like you went in the closet. I didn't hear you. What?
I think there's always an element of if there's a guy who's taking over the lead role at a position like a running back or a quarterback or anything like that, that where you're counted on for production, there's a wait and see approach. So I think people are saying, okay, how does he fill in as the number one guy? And obviously, they're going to use Alexander Madison and Amir Abdullah and maybe Dylan Loeb and those guys like that. Um, but Zamir White is going to be, the focal point of that backfield. Listen, he's got big shoes to fill. Josh Jacobs was excellent. He was one of the best in the league during his time with the Raiders. But I'm intrigued to see what he does this year, Zamir White, because I did like what he brought to the table down the stretch when he got more of an opportunity. And I think there's some ability there. You mentioned college. We saw him in college, and at Georgia, there were some other guys in the mix too. When you're playing on a team with that much talent, you're not asked to do an unreasonable amount of work. So I think there's some fresh tread on those tires as well. And I think that, he's coming in looking to prove a point. I think he's going to have a good year. I do. I think he's going to be, whether a good year means he's regarded as a top 10 running back at the end of it or a top 15 running back or a top 7, whatever remains to be seen. But I think he's going to be productive. And I think Raider fans will be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be in the top 15. I want to go in a little bit of a different direction. Same point, different angle. When you talk about waiting to see what a guy's going to do, this isn't like he's a first round draft pick who's never done anything in the league. I mean, he did more at Georgia than Bijan Robinson did at Texas. I think you could make some arguments there as far as winning and everything else.
Right.
And so that's where I'm coming at. I'm not saying anyone should be labeling him anything he isn't. But to act like it's the worst room, they have nothing there when he's put some NFL reps together at a very high level. To me, that's where I'm thinking about the disrespect. Am I wrong or am I right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're wrong. I guess it's just a matter of I'm not necessarily. I'd have to look at all the other rooms to see where they're at. I don't think they have the worst room just off the top of my head because I do like what he's shown, and I think that there's enough experience there with Amir Abdullah, and I think Alexander Madison probably miscast as the number one back in Minnesota after they let go of Dalvin Cook. But I think he can play a role as the number 2 guy. We've seen him in the past be a good complementary back. So I don't. I think the worst room in the league is definitely a little harsh.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you another thing. Alexander Madison also didn't benefit that everybody knew they were going to run. And
That's
so
true.
he faced and stacked boxes and still got over 500 yards. All right, I want to turn to Kansas City Chiefs, AFC West rival of the Silver and Black. I have been a very outspoken proponent that if it were my decision, I wouldn't be giving billions, or excuse me, I wouldn't be giving hundreds of millions of dollars to billionaires to build stadiums. There are some exceptions. I think what Nevada did to get a big time NFL team and what it means to Vegas, that was an investment in the city. So I had no issue with that. And no problem there. I understand why Oakland doesn't. I mean, you're need the money. You don't have the money to be giving it to a billionaire. I understand that. My approach is always, man, I think every case is different, but I don't fault people who don't want to give it, and I don't fault people who do. So the people of Missouri made a decision, no, we're not funding your stadium, which is their choice. Now the people of Missouri are like, okay, we will. I think this is a fascinating border rivalry. I don't think Missouri or Kansas City are wrong. I think if the Chiefs hold their feet to the fire, I think the people of Missouri will eventually acquiesce. But I like this move by Kansas. I think it's smart. Now, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm going to sit back. Who's going to give me the best deal? It's just like having two people. You got a boat for sale and two people bidding on the boat. I love it. I think it's great for the Chiefs. I think it's great for Kansas. What a coup that would be if Kansas got them. And I think it's a wake up call to the people of Missouri. I mean, excuse me, good for Missouri. And I think for the people of Kansas, it's okay. Are you willing to stick to your beliefs now that there's another suitor? I think this is fascinating to me. I equate it this way. I have a friend who is a humongous Chiefs fan, and he's a divorce attorney. And so he sent me a text and he goes, this is like the guy whose wife ignores him and takes him for granted. And all of a sudden, somebody else shows interest, and now there's a bidding war. Only a divorce attorney would think like that. But I think this is kind of fun. I think it's good for the sport. What do you think of it?
I think it's very interesting because if you look at for since they're since they came to Kansas City, they've been in Kansas City, Missouri, they've been in Arrowhead Stadium. That's been their home. It's tough to see, impossible for me to see the Chiefs not playing home games at Arrowhead. Um, but now you're kind of looking at it like you got the Chiefs, the Royals, uh, that complex, that area there, which has been part of Kansas City forever. If I'm the Kansas side of the border, which is what they're doing, they're saying, "Hey, why not come over here? We'll support you. We'll do this because it for them, like you still mentioned with Vegas, it's a coup. It's going to drive up local industry, local businesses, and it's going to be a huge way of transferring potential money across the state line there. So I think we've seen obviously some of these stadium battles over the years between, teams talking about playing in the Raiders going back and forth with Oakland and Los Angeles. There's been always stuff in this area about teams looking to build new arenas or stadiums in New York City or going to play in New Jersey or vice versa. And it's always sometimes it can get kind of ugly or people can kind of get turned off because of the amount of money that's being thrown around and the fact that there's billionaires involved, like you said. But I do think there's a fascinating thing here because of the border aspect of it and the fact that they wouldn't be leaving the area; they would just be hopping across the state line.
Have you been there?
I have not.
Okay, so let me share this. Years ago, I mean years and decades ago, when I was a little boy, um, I loved George Brett,
Yeah.
and I just I just him, and there were so many Kansas City Royals. Now I'm a Tiger fan through and through. Grew up in Michigan. You're a Tiger guy. And so one weekend, my dad had to go down on business, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go with me? And we'll catch the Tigers are going to be in Kansas City." So I remember sitting there in that stadium, just it was a magical ballpark, and looking over at Arrowhead and thinking, "Man, that's so cool." And now I've been to multiple games at Arrowhead. It is such a iconic. It reminds me of downtown Detroit,
Mhm.
where they've got Ford Field now next to Comerica.
Yeah,
I
Philly,
just
Philly's like
yeah,
that
I
too.
like it. I like the whole. And so if they were to just pick up and move to Missouri, I think it would be, as long as they just keep those two together. It's like the A's and the Raiders hate each other. And so they're almost synonymous. It's just so funny that the A's are coming to Vegas, because it's not like these franchises are best friends. Okay. And I don't know that hate is the right word, but the A's got all of the blessings in the stadium with Oakland that the Raiders didn't. So it's just fun to me to see the Chiefs and the Royals kind of cut from the same cloth, not the A's and the Raiders. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, I want to get to um, another subject. You and I have briefly discussed it, but it's come to the forefront now about a quarterback salary cap.
Mhm.
The money that they're paying quarterbacks now is simply ridiculous. Um, Anybody in this league making more money than Patrick Mahomes doesn't deserve it. But you have a collectively negotiated salary cap. And you look at what they just paid Trevor Lawrence. I mean, humongous money. You look at Dallas now. They got CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Dak next year. I mean, you look at how much they're going to have to pay him. They could have as much as 50 or 60% if those guys all get top of the market deals, and they're all top of the market players. My point to you is simple. I've talked with people in management, coaching, and players and asked, what do you think of a separate quarterback cap? Other than the quarterbacks I've talked to, nobody likes it. And here's why. They said it is a team sport. You've got a team cap. And at some point, the bubble's coming off. The quarterbacks, like it has the running backs, when they realize, wait a minute, Trevor Lawrence may be a great player. I'm going to say right now, and I like Trevor, and I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He has not done anything close to what his contract has just paid him, in my opinion. Now, I'm a free market capitalist. I want the guy to get everything that he can get, but it is ridiculous money. It is dumb money, which again, no problem. It's their money. But if you go with a separate cap, it's going to have to be negotiated. Okay. Owners are not going to give up more. So players are going to be like, no, we want all that money for the players. And if you want to have a separate cap, I had one player tell me, I'll read you the text. This is from a star player. F no, I don't support another cap. This is a team sport. But I will tell you this, if they get their own cap and ours doesn't change, fine. But I'm not willing to give up money in our cap for them. If they want to overpay, let them overpay. Can't get much more blunt than that. What are your thoughts on this? Be analytical because you're so good at it. What do you think of this?
Well, we talked about this recently on here too. I think one of the issues that is going to be fascinating is when you're talking about that bubble potentially bursting, and we always seem to see it happen, whether it's in business, whether it's in the housing market, whether it's NFL, the running back market. There's always a bubble that kind of blows up. Quarterbacks are not going to suddenly start requesting less money. And where, like you said, if you were a quarterback, would you take a more team friendly deal so you could build the roster out? Sounds great. As an owner, as a coach, you're hoping the guy does that. issue with that is the players' union is not going to be happy. They want their guys asking for and getting as much as possible so the salaries can keep going up so the next crop continues to get paid the same or more. If with that being the case, you're only looking at the salaries increasing. Um, the two next deals that are being talked about in term after Trevor Lawrence are Tua, whether he gets it from the Dolphins or if he hits free agency, or Dak Prescott, whether he gets it from the Cowboys or he gets free agency. Now, Dak Prescott, if he
Jordan Love.
Jordan
Jordan
Love
Love
too, yeah,
probably
yeah.
before him.
And then eventually it'll be very interesting to see after this season. He still has another year on his rookie deal in 2025. But if Brock Purdy plays well again and the Niners go deep into the playoffs, what does that contract look like? Um, Getting back to Dak, listen, you can talk about what he is or isn't, or you can talk about what he isn't, and you can listen to FS1 and First Take and them kind of debate him every day endlessly. The bottom line is whatever flaws he has and whatever flaws are on his resume in terms of the postseason, he's still a lot better than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. If he has a good year and the Cowboys choose to let him walk, he might get $300 million from another team. And I mean, you're talking about the contracts going through the roof. There's there's no signs of it stopping at this point because you're getting teams that are paying money to guys that they think are their franchise guys or they feel that they're franchise guys, and it's 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 just going to be the cycle continues. Like you said, there's 8 guys that you can win Super Bowl with. There's 8 guys that you might be able to win a Super Bowl with. Teams think they can win a Super Bowl with, and then the other 16 teams are hoping. Well, even if you got take the other 16 teams out of it, that's half the league of quarterbacks that are probably signed to second deals or big free agent deals. That's a lot of money being thrown around.
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, I really like Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love's going to be a really good quarterback. I think. I think we've not seen enough to crown him as a great. Okay. Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to be really good quarterback. But I'm sorry, we've not seen that kind of money. And let's go to Dak Prescott. There's we've not seen enough out of him to think, okay, you're elite, you're better than Patrick Mahomes. Come on now. Listen,
Oh,
if they would have signed Patrick Mahomes to the Trevor Lawrence deal, I'd be sitting here today. Good for you. Good guy, good person. I really like him a lot. You know that. You know my personal connection. I don't have any issue with that. I don't have a problem paying guys. But when you're paying blue sky, which in business means rosy outlook
mm-hmm.
and not stats, I think Brock Purdy has shown it. I think you've seen a lot of guys show you can go do a lot of things with some guys that aren't necessarily. I think there is a bubble burst coming of epic proportions. It's going to be epic. All right. Last thing I want to get at with you because I think this one is really funny. The NFL these 4 weeks is these 5 weeks is really just considered it's dead. Everybody's vacationing. Coaches will start to come back in after 4th of July, and they're still doing some work, but still a lot of people on vacation. This is a time now where people are beginning to chomp at the bit. I love the HBO training camp, Hard Knocks, HBO midseason. I just can't get enough of Hard Knocks. I just love it. Other than Big Ten Journey, which is great stories, which I think is the best sports documentary out there. Hard Knocks is just phenomenal watching. I don't think they can give us too much Hard Knocks. Do you?
I do think overall that I think the some of the older versions of Hard Knocks were better or showed more. I think they've
Yes.
become they become a little bit more I don't want to say PC, but they become a little bit more corporate with teams allowing what is shown, and it's kind of become more cookie cutter. Um, but I do think that I think the different access you're getting, and you're seeing the series start to evolve because first it was, for years it was a training camp. Then they moved into in season. Now they're doing for the first time doing off season. The Giants are the first team in the off season. Now the in season for the first time is an entire division. They're going around the whole AFC North, so they're going to look at all four teams, not just one. I think the lineup this year is really interesting because you have the first off-season Hard Knocks ever, and it's a franchise that's notoriously closed ranks, didn't want to participate in Hard Knocks. The Giants never wanted to let them in, so we'll see what they provide for that. The Bears have a lot of interesting storylines. First and foremost, Caleb Williams, and then you go in season. You're going to go around a whole division of what should be arguably one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL in the AFC North.
Yeah, but remember, the Bears aren't in with the same division as the Giants.
No. I'm saying the same division for the in season is the AFC North.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Okay,
that's what I
okay,
meant.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun.
yeah.
You and I do not discuss topics before the show because you stole my follow up to that, which is I'm concerned that it's becoming corporate, and if that happens, Matt, they're going to ruin it yet again. They're going to ruin it. The only thing that can hurt the NFL is the NFL. True or false?
That's true. I think that if it becomes too corporate or kind of too cookie cutter, it kind of dilutes the product. And then you wonder, I'm excited to see what it's going to be like this year with three separate Hard Knock series, the off-season training camp and then the in-season. But you do worry about some type of overexposure, some type of what's going to happen with, if it becomes too saturated.
I agree, 100%. He's the great Matt Halatic from the Spun.com. Check it out. Matt, can you tell everybody your Twitter handle?
Yeah, you can find me on there at Matt Haladik 919 at MATTHLADIK 919, and I'm on there, and I'm always down to interact with new people and talk some ball.
I'm going to tell you, I've heard from a lot of Raider fans that are following you. They really, really enjoy it. Keep it up. Remember, everybody, go to SI.com/NFL/Raiders for all of our content. We'll see you tomorrow.